We're on Kuf Ayin Omid Beis. Right. So if I the Mishnah right at the top, we're going to be talking more about the din of a shaver, which came up on the last blot. A shaver is a receipt, right? We'll see the different places in which it comes up. So like the Mishnah, Misha para mixes chayvay. Reuven borrowed money from Shimon, and he owes him $100. And after 6 months, Reuven comes up with, he has $50. So he goes to Shimon, he says, I'll pay back $50. He gives it to him. Now we have a problem. We mentioned this before. There's a problem, right? Because the shtar of Halva says that Reuven owes Shimon $100. So if Reuven just leaves it as is, then Shimon could pop up with it and say, you still owe me $100, and he really owes him $50. So the question is, what do you do? So Yehuda Aimer Yachlef. Yehuda says you have to switch the shtar. You have Shimon produce the shtar. Shimon is the lender. He produces the shtar, and you rip it up and you give a different shtar instead that says that Reuven owes him $50 instead of $100. So Shimon gets a replacement shtar. If Yesi Aimer Yichtav Shaver, his shtar, and Reuven gets a receipt. Shimon writes a new piece of paper that says he gives to Reuven, which says that Reuven paid me already $50. And then if Shimon produces the shtar that says that Reuven owes him $100, Reuven will produce the shaver, the receipt that says that he already paid $50 and he only has to pay an additional $50. That's the machlekes. Yesi says you write a shaver, and Yehuda says you don't. Amr Yehuda nimtza zeh tzarich liyashaym shaver min achbar. Yehuda asked Rabbi Yesi, how can you say that this poor borrower he gets a shaver, he gets a receipt. Now he has a responsibility. He has to watch this shaver. If the mice come, the rodents come and eat it up, then he's going to be back at square one. That Reuven's going to be asking him for $100, even though he already paid $50. Amle Rabbi Yesi said back to Rabbi Yehuda, Kach yafalai. It's fine. That's the way it should be. La'yira kaycha shows that, and the kayach, the position of the lender, should not be made any worse. Meaning to say, as the Gemara is going to explain later on, essentially, that we want it to be that way. That generally we favor the lender. There's a pasuk that says, basically the Torah says that a person who's a lender is meshubed to the lender. A person who's a borrower is meshubed to the lender. Eved loiva leishmal. That a loiva is the one who's meshubed. He's the one who's subservient, and therefore he is the one who has to who we want to put the pressure on. And the Gemara will explain that if he has a shaver and he knows that if he loses it and he's going to be in a bad position, he'll be pushed to pay back the rest of the loan quicker, to get himself, once he pays back the rest of the loan, then he can get the shtar. He doesn't have to worry about guarding the shaver. So that's Rabbi Yesi's answer of why he says we give a shaver.
That's probably halach. I'm just curious.
The Gemara is going to come at the end. It's like the Gemara says that we give a shaver, but there's certain eitzes that you could write into the shaver to avoid problems. You could write in the shaver, whatever. We'll see later on exactly what the halach is. There's different halachas for a shaver, the guy for a loan as opposed to a purchase. We'll see what the Gemara comes out with. Zak the Gemara. Amar Rav Huna Marav. Ein halacha loik Rabbi Yehuda v'loik Rabbi Yesi. Rav Huna Marav says the halacha is not like either Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yesi. Ela bezdin makarna shtar v'koisim lo shtar achar bizman rishon. Rather, bezdin rips up the shtar and you write a new shtar that is dated from the original time of the loan. So Rav Huna Marav is saying that Rav, he's saying b'shem Rav. Rav can be chaylik on it. Rav is a Tanahu Palik. Rav has the ability to be chaylik on Tanaim. So what he really was saying is that it only the Mishnah it said that even the Edom can make a new shtar. Yamachlef, when the Mishnah says Yamachlef the shtar, we understood that means that you don't have to go to Bezdin. You just the Edom can go and write a new shtar. They just say, you get the original Edom that wrote the first shtar and say, could you write a new shtar for the smaller amount? He is saying, Rav is saying that, but you have to go to Bezdin, and Bezdin are the ones who are going to rip up the shtar and write a new one. Amalei Rav Nachman Rav Huna. So Rav Nachman asked Rav Huna. Rav Nachman didn't understand that's what he was saying. He thought he was saying that the machlokes is that he said you do it mizman rishon. That you do it, that you date it from the original date in order to avoid the problem of him being able to be, that he shouldn't lose the ability to be goiva, right? Well, the question is, when you write this new shtar, what date do you write on it? From when does this shtar take effect? So he had understood that in the Mishnah they were saying that you write it from the date that you're writing the new shtar, right? Let's say the original loan was made in September. And now Ruvain pays $50 in January. So we say we rip up the shtar written in September, we write a new shtar. So he had understood that it means what Rav Huna Marav was saying is that the Mishnah had said that you date it from January. And Rav has been chaylik and saying, no, you date it from September. Because Rav wants to avoid the problem that the lender shouldn't lose the ability to be goiva. Let's say the Baal Chayv doesn't have money. So he can take from a Shubadim, he can take from Karka that the borrower sold after the loan was entered into. He doesn't want to make it that he can only take from Mishubadim, from Lekuchas, from January. He wants it to have it from the beginning. So he understood that that's the way Rav Nachman had understood what Rav was disagreeing with the Mishnah. Amalei Rav Nachman Rav Huna, Avami lo Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba Rav Huna. Yishmiel el Rav haBrais the Tanya. Edom mekarna shashar v'koyten l'shta'achav in zman rishon have a hadebe. If he had seen this brisa that explains the Mishnah, that the Mishnah is saying the same thing, that says the Edom rip up the shtar and they write a new shtar from the original time, from September. He never would have said that Rav is being chaylik on Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosef. Meaning he's saying that you're trying, the way I'm struggling to explain it because Rav Nachman misunderstood from the beginning what Rav Huna Rav was being chaylik on. He was saying he thought Rav was being chaylik on what date you put on this new shtar that you're using to replace the original shtar. So he says that, but there's a brisa that says that a Mishnah also says that you date it from the original time, from when the original shtar was written. So there's no difference between Rav Yehuda and Rav. Amalei, so he said back to him, Shmielei b'loy hadabe. He says, no, I know about this brisa, but I still say that Rav Huna still said that Rav was saying he's saying a different din than Rav Yehuda. Like we said before, the point of Rav Huna Rav was not that when you sign this, when you make this new shtar, what date you put on it, but rather it was whether the Edom can write over the shtar by themselves, or if they have to go to Bezdin. So he was saying that the Rav Huna Rav was saying that you have to go to Bezdin, not like our Mishnah that says the Edom themselves can write it over. Ella. Sagt die Gemara. El Edom she'asu shechuson chayzav ay shechuson. So he asked, so what are you saying? So he's saying that the Mishnah holds that you don't have to go to Bezdin. The Edom themselves can rewrite the shtar. Is there such a thing that Edom, once they finish the shlichus, they can go and do it again? He says, it's not that they don't have authority to write a new star. They were given these edim that were told to write the first star. That's all they were told to do. Where do they get the authority to write a new star? Is it not? They can't. Edim also the achas. Edim that were assigned to write a star, mechira, and they wrote the star mechira and they signed on it, and then it got lost before the transaction could occur. They could write a new star. They could do it even 10 times. So you see that it's not a problem to write over a star. So, and for the Gemara, no, that's only in specific cases. Generally, it is a problem to rewrite a star, like we said, because if you write multiple stars, you're going to end up with a situation that the person could be goyva more than once. So, Rabbi Yosef says, no, that what you said you could write 10 stars is only a specific case of a star matana, where there's no concern that you're going to take this karka more than once, or use it to be goyver from the kuchas again. And Rabbi says it's talking about a star that even by star mechira, that he says you could even write. It doesn't have to be just like Rabbi Yosef says by star matan. It could even do talking about a star mechira, and you could write 10. But we're talking about where there's no achrayis. So where there's no achrayis, where the purchaser can't have it taken away from him based on this new star, so then we don't have that concern of that he's going to go and that Baal Chayv is going to come take it away from him based on this different timing of the star. Then you could write even a second star. So it's only those specific cases. Dr. Gemara, my brisa. What is the brisa, right? This brisa that we said, ha brisa the Tanya Edom Akarnas Shabbat L'Shtar Achar Mizran Rishon. If someone says that if someone paid up a part of his chayv, you rip up the new star and you write a new star from the original time. Where is this brisa? So Gemara says the Tanya. Hareisha ha you noisim by elef zuz. This is the way we described it before. Like we said, Shimon lent Ruvain 1,000 zuz, par mehen chamish meyazuz, and then Ruvain paid back 500 of the zuz. Edim mekarnas hashtar. The edim, not like Rav had said that it has to be with Bezdin, but even the edim themselves can be mekaras hashtar. V'kaisen leishtar acha mizman rishon. And you could write a new star mizman rishon. Divri Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda from our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda says you don't write a shaver, rather you rip up the star, and the edim themselves can rip up the star and write a new one. I'm sorry, star zeh yehi munach from kaimai. Rabbi Yossi disagrees, like we saw in the Mishnah. He says the star remains by the lender, even though it says 1,000 and Reuven only owes him 500. And Shimon will write a receipt that he'll give to Reuven that he was already paid 500 of the loan. And there are two reasons why we say that we have Shimon write a receipt to give to Reuven on the $500 rather than ripping up the star and writing a new one. The first one is in order that Reuven will be motivated to pay back the loan. We want to give Reuven the motivation. So if he has a shaver, he's worried he's going to lose it. If he lets the loan hang around for a long time, eventually he'll lose the shaver, and then Shimon can come present him with $1,000 loan document. So that's the reason why we do a shaver rather than ripping up the document. And one of them is in order that he can be goyva from the original time. That if you make a shaver, the shaver will be for a new time, right? It will be from the zman of the shaver, that will be in January. And we want that this lender, that Shimon, if Reuven doesn't pay up, he'll be able to go to Lekuchas from anyone that Reuven sold property to from September, not from when the Shaiva was written. Correct. The Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Nami was on Rishon Kalmar. The Gemara says, what are you talking about? In this price that you're just quoting, it says that you write this new star also says from the original time. So why are you saying that you write a shaver so that the original star will still be from the original time? But even we said, the Yehuda who said that you replace the star, he says the new star is also written from the time of the original star. He says, if you talk, Rabbi Yossi didn't know, he wasn't aware of what Rabbi Yehuda exactly had said. He wasn't sure if Rabbi Yehuda intended that the new star should be written from the original time of the loan, or if it should be from the new time that the shayvu, that the new star was being written, when the new star was being written, or from the original. So he says, if you're saying that you write it from the original time of the original star, then my only taina is the reason why you write a shayvu is in order to motivate the borrower to pay. But even sheni kamret, if you're saying that you just write the new loan, you write the new star from the time that you're writing it in January, then I have two reasons to disagree with you why you should write a shayvu, because I don't want that the lender should lose his ability to be given from lekuchas from the time of the original loan. Tan Rabban, shtar shezmani kosev b'Shabbos or b'Asar b'Tishrei. If someone has a star, it says that it was this star that Reuven borrowed money from Shimon, or Reuven sold something to Shimon. It's written, its date is September 5th. And it turns out September 5th is Yom Kippur, or September 5th is Shabbos. Person, that's what the Rashbam says. He wrote it in the secular. The way they used to write it is on the 20th day of the third month of the king of that time, right? We said how it works. So it doesn't say what day it is in the Jewish calendar. And it turns out that the day written in the secular calendar turns out to be Shabbos or Yom Kippur. So clearly the loan or the sale did not take place on the day of the shtar, right? You're not allowed to sell something, or you're not allowed to borrow money on Yom Kippur, clearly. So we know.
Shabbos?
What?
No question, people were in Shabbos.
No, we're not chayish. We know. So we say it didn't happen on that day. The loan says a date. That's not the date that the loan took place. The shtar does not say the right date. Shtar ma'ochu. So we assume that they wrote the shtar. Let's say I could give you an example of how you have a shtar ma'ochu. It's not that hard of a thing. Where we said a borrower can go to someone and say, write me a shtar that I'm going to borrow money. Reuven goes and says, write me a shtar. He goes to the sefer, write me a shtar that I'm borrowing $1,000 from Shimon. Now, Shimon's not here, but the sefer could write it because Reuven's obligating himself. He wants to obligate himself, but Reuven figures, I'm going to get a hold of Shimon. I'm going to get him to agree to lend me the money in 2 weeks. So date it 2 weeks from now. And when you do that, when you make a shtar ma'ocher, you make it later, it's not a problem. The only one who's hurt from that is the lender. The lender doesn't have to accept it, but if the lender accepts it, then let's say he ends up taking it. He does the loan before the zman on the shtar. So the lender is not going to be able to go from lekuchas anything that Reuven sold between the time that he actually made the loan and the date that's written on the shtar. He's not going to have the ability to take from lekuchas. If Reuven doesn't end up paying back, he's only going to be able to take from things that he sold after the date on the shtar, even though the loan was actually entered into earlier. But that's not, so it's still kosher, the kosher. So therefore, since this loan clearly was not entered into on the date on the shtar, we assume that it's a shtar that was written before it was written with a date that's later than when they actually entered the loan, but that's still kosher. Rabbi Yossi will passel, and we're going to explain soon what the What's the reason why Rabbi Yossi passes? There was a situation where this came, right, where someone showed fruit, and you said it's kosher. So why are you saying now that's puzzle? He said, when I kasher, it was only in this case where there was where it said Yom Kippur on it. But I don't generally hold that a shtar mocher is kosher. In fact, ever Rabbi Yehuda Nami was that ka'amar. So he asked him, "What are you saying? You're saying you argued about the case of Yom Kippur, and then you said I only say it's kosher by the case of Yom Kippur. That's what you were arguing." What it says no. It was misstated what the machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, really everyone agrees that if the shtar itself has a inherent contradiction, like for example, where it says in the shtar that it's on Yom Kippur or it's on Shabbos, so we know there's something funny going on, and people will realize that this is a shtar ma'ocher if it's ever used, then Rabbi Yossi also holds that it's going to be kosher. The only disagreement is if you have a shtar that the shtar itself doesn't, the date is a regular date, it's a regular Tuesday on it, but you write it in advance, right? You write it in September, you write the shtar and you put the date of the loan as being in January. The Rabbi Yehuda l'tamei da'amar ein kaisvin shayver. Rabbi Yehuda holds we don't write a shayver, we don't write a receipt, right? This is the machlokes from our Mishnah. So this is how we're getting back to our original why this Gemara is being brought. He holds that we don't write a shayver, but rather if someone will end up prepaying part of the loan, we're going to rip up the original loan and write a new one. And therefore there will be no problems. Rabbi Yossi, who says you cannot, a shtar ma'ocher is possible, because he's going according to his sheet to the Amar Kaisvin Shaiva, that he says we write a Shaiva v'nafak minei churba, and therefore because you write a Shaiva, since he says that if someone prepays instead of ripping up the original shtar, you don't write a new shtar, but rather you write a Shaiva, you can have a problem that will arise. Let's see the Rashbam that he explains what the problem is. Dr. Rashbam, the Nafak Mine Chorba on the first line, Aliba de Rabbi Yossi, Kedem Afarish Va'azal. No. The Rabbi Yehuda, the Machshel Tamei Damar in Kais and Shava, Hildach Lechayish Beim Ochel Shenichta Bizman El Oilam, Any Parachi Yika Chashtav Yikran. Where is it? Anyway, I can't find where in the Rashbam it is. But the problem is that if you write a shayver, right? So what happened? You originally wrote the shtar in September, and it said the date on it was in January. And in the meantime, the borrower paid back. Let's say it was a shtar for $1,000. He pays him $1,000. He owes him $1,000. In the meantime, the borrower paid back $500, and now he writes and he says, "Listen, I don't want you to continue to have the shtar that says that I owe you $1,000 because I paid back 500 of it." So according to Rabbi Yossi, what do? You rip up the original shtar and you write. I'm sorry, the lender keeps the shtar, and the borrower Reuven gets a receipt that says that he paid back $500. But we're concerned, what happens if between the time that you wrote the original shtar and the time that's written on the shtar, meaning in January, Reuven decides to pay back the whole thing, and Shimon says, "I'm sorry, I don't have a I haven't got the original document, the original star. So Ruvain will then let me. Okay, let's see the Rashbam. That's about 10, 15 lines down in the narrow lines. So I made the Amr Kais Sheba. Hecha the para mixes chayva. What then hecha the para kol chayva? Between Malva irka star. And the Malva says, I lost my star. The Mashlik one, Kaisvin Shiver. So in that case, we would write a receipt. But notice in Leiva, Laidia Shepara kol chayva. Look at Chayshtar Mocha Pasulhu. What's the problem? So the Gemara is going to explain. Amr of Huna Braid of Yeshua. Feel man Amakaitan Shaivar Hanimila Apalga. Yeah, so the Gemara is going to explain what the problem is. Because the Gemara says, that which we said, that even according to the Mandama who says the Yekaisiv Shaivar, that there's a problem, that's only where he said, I paid back part of it. But if he says that I paid back the whole thing, then you don't write a Shaivar. It's not true. Afilu akula kasvinin. Kihadar of Yitzchak by Yosef. Like this of Yitzchak by Yosef have a masik bezuze be Rabbi Abba. He owed money to Rabbi Abba. Also, Kamei de Rechanina bar Papi, and he came to Rechanina bar Papi to say to help him. I want to get my money from Rabbi Abba. Amalei havli zuzoi. He said, "Give me my money that is owed to me." Amalei havli shtori. So he said to him, "I'm not going to pay back the money that I owe unless you give me the star. If you give me the star that you won't be able to be given from me again, then I'll give you the money." So the lender who had given the money to Rabbi said, "I lost the star." He said, I'll write you a receipt. Amalei said, "I lost the star, but I'll write you a receipt if you pay me." Amalei, but what about Rav and Shmuel that says that we don't write a shayver? Like we said before, they don't like writing a shayver because we don't want to put the onus of protecting the shayver on the borrower. Until now, the lender was the one who had to watch the star in order to get paid back. Now he's claiming that he lost the star. So now he's saying, I want to write you a receipt, and now you're going to be the one who has to watch the receipt in order to protect yourself. Omar man yavlon me'afre de Rav Shmuel Ramina be'einin. Halavai that someone should give us some of the dust of Rav and Shmuel that we should put into our eyes. It was a way of saying, giving covet to Rav and Shmuel, who he's about to agree with. But Harab Yochanan Harish Lakish and Ami Travayu Koisvin Shtoiva. But Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan both say we do write a shayva, and therefore we're going to still have the problem of nafik minei churva, that if you write a shayva, you could have a problem. It's going to come out a problem if it turns out that if you write a shtar me'ocher, that you're going to be able to be goiva based on if you write a shayva. Trying to remember what the churva was. But Amalei Erkas, who had him below Erkas, Hecha the Parachatzi Chayva Gazu Shava Lev Yachal Hamal V'Lohitzi Achikin Shtachavish Gazu Zman Achazman. Yeah. So this is, I think the churva is explained in this Rashbam V'Amalei Erkas. V'Amalei Erkas, if you're going to give a shiver, if the lender is going to say that I lost the star, so I'm going to avoid him below Erkas. And even if he didn't lose it, the same thing will be if he paid back Chatzachai, but Katsu Shiver Lulav, and he writes a Shiver for the Lev. He could later on produce the star that is written after the time of the Shiver. He could double dip and he could ask for his money twice. he'll say that he lent me new money, right? If he has a star, this is the basic problem. If you hold, you give a shiver. So Ruvain borrowed money from Shimon in September, and then in October, let's say, he either Ruvain paid back half the money, or Shimon says, I lost this star and I want to write a new star. And if you hold that, you give Ruvain a shiver. So then Ruvain will have a shiver, and it will say the date of October, that he's owed the money from October. But then a month later, in December, the lender will pop up with his original loan document that says January. He says, or he'll wait till January and say, look, I made a new loan that after this whole, the loan that's set in the receipt, this is a new loan because look, it says the date of December. So, or January, I forgot what I said. But if you have a shtar ma'ocher, we're worried that if you write a receipt, the old loan document that has a later date on it will be produced by the lender and used to ask for the money again.
I don't get it. The original star was September. So
but it was dated. It was dated January. That's ma'ucher. That's what ma'ucher means. It has a later date on it. So where if you give a shiva, he'll say it's a new loan. He'll say you don't know when this loan was written. The only way doesn't say on the top a different date. There's only one date on it. The date is January. It was written in September. It's dated January. Or he's going to produce it. The lender's going to produce it again. Now, if he has to rip it up and write a new one, then obviously it can't happen. But if you give a receipt, or that the lender is going to produce it again.
So shouldn't the receipt in that case indicate this?
Oh, that's the Gemara is going to give a suggestion that you write in the receipt that if any loan comes out on the date that was written in the original loan, this receipt is paying for that loan. That's going to be a suggestion that we do to avoid this problem. Write in the receipt.
It's not a good receipt to begin with.
Well, the assumption is the receipt just says from the date on which this transaction occurred. Normally, that's the standard, right? You write everything on the Gemara later on. I'm going to suggest, like you say, write in the receipt a lashon that's going to be on the top of the Yomid. Write in the receipt a lashon that indicates that you won't run into this problem.
The problem is if you forget the exact date with it.
Right, exactly. That's the problem. You have to remember what the date was on that loan that's not in his hand anymore. You have to remember it. Right, because if you don't have that date, how do you indicate? Like, what happens if Reuben borrows more money from Shimon? So how are you going to know? You don't want to be mevatel in the receipt any loans that Shimon made to Reuben. Maybe Reuben borrowed money from Shimon 5 more times. So that one receipt is going to be mevatel everything. You have to have a way to identify the original loan in the receipt. And that's what makes it difficult. You have to remember. That's what the Gemara says. If he remembers the original date. Okay, we're jumping ahead a little bit. So we have this machlokes of whether you write a shiver or not. If you hold that you write a shiver like Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah, then you have this problem that nafik minei churba, that the lender could borrow again, could claim he's owed money still from the original document. If you hold you don't, then you hold. And then there's a problem with the shtar mocha. If you hold you're not kaiser b'shiver, then you could write a shtar mocha. Now, all of this is only in a regular shtar mocha. None of this is a problem in a shtar that says on it on Yom Kippur, because since the shtar itself says it's a date that's clear that it's a shtar mocha, right? If it says that the date is if the date on it is Yom Kippur, so when the Bezdin looks at it, they're going to know it's a shtar mocha. So when the guy comes. When Reuven produces the receipt and says, I already paid. Now Shimon says, oh, but this is a new loan. Bez is going to say, I'm sorry, we're not accepting this as a new loan because clearly this loan's date is not an accurate date because it says Yom Kippur. So we're not trusting the date on it. So therefore you can't, if Reuven has a receipt, that's going to be mevatel that loan. Rabbi Mariloi also says you write a shiver and Mistama you do write a shiver and therefore you can't write a shtar mocha. These are the ein kaisen shiver. Because if you'll say that you don't write a shayver, because if you say you don't write a shayver, if someone loses his star, what's going to happen? Someone who loses a star, then what are you going to do? Shimon loses his star, and he goes to Reuven and he says, "Listen, I lost my star. I want to write a new one. And I have the Adam here that saw the original star, and let's write a new star." And we say, "No, you can't write a new star. I'm sorry, we don't write. I'm not going to write a star together with a shaver because we don't want. I don't want to have the borrower says I don't want to have the responsibility of watching over the shaver. So what's going to happen? So now Shimon's never going to get a replacement for his original star, and Reuben's just going to be able to continue keeping his whatever he borrowed, and there's not going to be any way to force him to pay it back. He's going to eat the loan, and he's going to be happy. Amle Rava in Eved Loivel Ishmalva. I'm sorry, I skipped. So what? You write a shaver. So the problem goes the other way. So if you write a shaver and he loses a shaver, then the lender's going to win, and the lender's going to be able to collect the money twice, and he's going to be happy. Yes, that we're not worried about. Eved loiva ishmalva. In the end, a loiva is meshubed to the malva. It's not a problem if the loiva ends up in a deleterious position. Okay, we'll stop over here. The Gemara then continues. We're talking about the rules of the psak of like I said, we didn't get up to it. What's the psak on a shaver? Do you write a shaver or not? Good Shabbos, Menachem.
Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.